Hey, before you try to fall asleep tonight, I want you to do something very small for me. Just stop carrying everything for a moment. Not forever, just for tonight. Because maybe nobody realized how emotionally exhausted you became lately. Maybe people saw your smile, but never saw the pressure hiding behind it. Maybe they heard you say, I'm fine, while your mind was quietly fighting battles you could not fully explain. And honestly, some nights become heavy like that. Your body feels tired, but your thoughts keep moving. You finally lie down hoping for rest, but your heart still feels crowded with stress, fear, responsibilities, memories, and questions about tomorrow. Sometimes it almost feels like your mind forgot how to be quiet. And maybe that is exactly why you found this moment tonight. Not by accident, not randomly. Maybe your soul simply needed somewhere peaceful to breathe again. Because Jesus knows what has been weighing on you lately. Every silent burden, every private fear, every night you stayed awake longer than you wanted because your thoughts refused to slow down. He saw the pressure you kept carrying without complaining. He saw the loneliness hidden beneath your strong face. And tonight, before sleep slowly finds you, I want you to let this story carry some of that weight for a little while. So take a slow, deep breath now and allow your shoulders to relax. Let the outside world become quieter. Let tomorrow wait until tomorrow arrives. Right now, there is only this peaceful night, the soft sound of distant rain, and a quiet little town resting beneath the midnight sky, far away from crowded roads and noisy cities. The streets, they're empty tonight. Warm lanterns glow softly beside old stone pathways while cool wind moves gently through tall pine trees surrounding the town. Rain falls lightly from the dark sky above, covering rooftops in silver reflections beneath the moonlight. Everything feels calm there, slower somehow, peaceful in a way the modern world often forgets. How to be. Near the edge of the town stands a small wooden church glowing softly beneath the stormy night sky. Candlelight shines through the windows while rain taps gently against the roof overhead. And tonight, through the cold rain and quiet darkness, a tired traveler slowly walks toward that church carrying emotional exhaustion deeper than anyone around him truly understands. His footsteps are slow, heavy, not because the road itself was difficult, but because life has been difficult lately. Every day recently felt like survival, waking up emotionally tired, smiling even when he felt drained inside, carrying responsibilities while quietly wondering how much longer his heart could keep holding everything together. Nobody around him noticed how overwhelmed he had become beneath the surface. But Jesus noticed. Jesus always notices tired hearts. And as the traveler finally reaches the warm, glowing church doors beneath the falling rain, something deep inside him begins hoping that maybe tonight, peace might still be possible after all. The old wooden doors creak softly as the traveler steps inside the church, leaving the cold storm behind him little by little. Immediately, warmth reaches him. Not overwhelming heat, just the calm, comforting warmth of a peaceful place untouched by the chaos outside. The sound of rain becomes quieter now, fading gently into the background beside the soft crackling of firewood burning somewhere deeper inside the church. The traveler stands silently near the entrance for a moment while drops of rain fall slowly from his coat onto the wooden floor beneath him. Candlelight flickers peacefully across the walls while shadows move softly through the quiet room. The entire church feels still, calm, safe in a way he has not felt in a very long time. Near the front of the room, beside a glowing fireplace, sits an elderly man reading from an old worn Bible resting across his lap. His silver hair catches the candlelight, while his calm eyes slowly lift toward the traveler standing quietly near the door. And then the old man smiles. A small, gentle smile. Real kindness without pressure behind it. The kind of kindness emotionally exhausted people often forget still exists in the world. The traveler lowers his eyes slightly, because suddenly something inside his chest tightens unexpectedly. Sometimes people carry stress for so long that even simple kindness starts feeling emotional. The old man quietly closes the Bible and motions toward the empty chair beside the fire. "Come sit," he says softly. "You look tired." His calm voice blends naturally with the rain tapping against the church windows. The traveler hesitates for only a second before slowly walking toward the warmth of the fireplace. Every step feels slower somehow, less tense, like his body is finally beginning to realize it no longer has to stay alert every second. He lowers himself carefully into the chair, while warmth reaches his cold hands almost immediately. For a few moments, neither of them speaks. The traveler simply stares into the glowing fire while the sound of crackling wood fills the peaceful silence around them. Outside, wind moves softly through the pine trees while rain continues drifting gently across the roof overhead. The old man watches the fire quietly before finally speaking again. "Some people become so busy surviving life," he says softly, "that they forget their hearts need rest too." The traveler feels those words deeply because lately that is exactly how life felt. Survival, waking up exhausted, carrying pressure through every day, falling asleep anxious, repeating the same cycle over and over again while pretending everything was okay. But deep down, he was tired in a way sleep alone could never fix. Emotionally tired, spiritually tired. The old man slowly leans back in the chair while the firelight flickers gently across his face. "People hide emotional pain very well," he says quietly, "especially the people everyone expects to stay strong." The traveler lowers his eyes while hearing those words because nobody around him truly understood how heavy life had become lately. He spent so much time pretending to be okay that eventually even he forgot what peace actually felt like anymore. But tonight, sitting beside this warm fire while the storm drifts through the darkness outside, something inside him begins softening little by little. Like maybe, for the first time in a very long while, he no longer has to carry every burden alone anymore. Outside the church, rainwater moves quietly through the empty streets of the sleeping town, while dark clouds drift slowly across the moonlit sky above the pine trees. The storm feels softer now, calmer somehow, and inside the church beside the glowing fire, the traveler finally feels his breathing beginning to slow down after carrying tension inside his chest for so long. He keeps staring quietly into the flames while warmth spreads gently through his tired body. The peaceful silence around him feels unfamiliar at first because lately silence usually meant overthinking, worry, anxiety. But this silence feels different, safe somehow, healing. The old man beside him gently opens the Bible once again before resting his hands quietly across the pages. Most people think exhaustion only comes from working too hard, he says softly while watching the fire. But sometimes the deepest exhaustion comes from feeling too much for too long. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because those words describe his life perfectly lately. Fear about the future, pressure to keep everything together, constant overthinking that followed him everywhere, even into bed at night. Some mornings he woke up already emotionally drained before the day even started. The old man notices the sadness quietly moving across the traveler's face and continues gently. A worried heart can become tired in ways nobody else can see. Outside, rain taps softly against the church windows while cool wind moves through the trees beyond the walls. The traveler listens quietly while thoughts drift slowly through his mind again. Long, stressful days, sleepless nights, moments where he smiled around people even while feeling completely exhausted inside. Somewhere along the way, he stopped asking himself whether he was okay anymore because life never seemed to slow down enough for him to even think about it. The old man slowly turns another page in the Bible. "Do you know something beautiful?" he asks softly. The traveler looks toward him quietly. "Jesus never turns away tired people." Those words settle deeply into the room between them. Most of the people Jesus comforted were overwhelmed. The old man continues gently. People carrying burdens too heavy for them to hold alone. The traveler stares back into the fire while hearing those words, because lately he really had been carrying everything alone. Fear, loneliness, emotional pressure, expectations from everyone around him. He became so used to surviving that he forgot peace was even possible anymore. The old man smiles faintly while candlelight flickers beside them. Jesus understands the kind of pain people hide behind their smiles. He says quietly. He notices every silent battle, even the ones nobody else sees. The traveler feels emotion rise quietly inside his chest again, because deep down he desperately needed to hear that tonight. Needed to know he was not invisible inside his exhaustion. Outside, the storm slowly begins fading farther into the mountains beyond the town, while moonlight starts appearing faintly through the clouds overhead. And sitting beside the warm fire inside this quiet little church, the traveler slowly begins feeling something return to his heart that he thought life had taken from him a long time ago. Peace. Small at first, gentle, but real. The fire burns steadily beside them while the church settles deeper into the peaceful hours after midnight. Outside, the rain grows lighter now, becoming nothing more than a soft whisper drifting across the rooftops of the sleeping town. Cool wind moves gently through the pine trees while moonlight slowly begins breaking through the fading clouds above. Inside the church, warm candlelight continues glowing softly against the old wooden walls while the traveler sits quietly wrapped in stillness beside the fire. His body feels heavy now, not from stress anymore, but from finally beginning to relax after carrying emotional tension for far too long. The old man watches the glowing flames carefully before speaking again in a low, calm voice. "Most people spend their whole lives trying to stay strong," he says softly, "but very few people ever learn how to truly rest." The traveler lowers his eyes because those words touch something painful deep inside him. Rest had become unfamiliar lately, even during quiet moments. His mind kept searching for problems to solve, worries to prepare for, fears to overthink. His body could lie still in bed for hours, while his thoughts continued running endlessly through the darkness. The old man slowly folds his hands together. "Some people become so used to carrying emotional weight," he says gently, "that peace starts feeling unnatural to them." The traveler feels a slow ache inside his chest because deep down he knows exactly what that means. For so long he believed worrying about everything was necessary. Like if he stopped carrying every burden himself, life would somehow fall apart around him. So he kept pushing forward, even while his spirit quietly became exhausted beneath the surface. Outside, the clouds continued drifting away from the moon while silver light spills softly across the church windows. The fire crackles gently nearby while silence settles peacefully around them once again. But this silence no longer feels empty. It feels comforting, healing, like the kind of quiet, emotionally tired people search for without even realizing it. The old man slowly looks toward the traveler again. Jesus never asked you to destroy yourself carrying the world on your shoulders, he says softly. The traveler closes his eyes briefly while hearing those words because lately that is exactly what life felt like. Carrying everything, trying to stay strong for everyone, pretending he was okay even when emotionally he felt close to falling apart. The old man gently smiles while watching the fire. God understands tired hearts, he says quietly, because he knows how heavy this world can become sometimes. Outside, the storm has almost completely disappeared now, while stars slowly begin appearing above the town once again. The traveler leans deeper into the chair beside the fire, while warmth surrounds him from every direction. And somewhere deep inside himself, something finally begins loosening after being held tightly for far too long. Fear, pressure, exhaustion, not disappearing completely, but softening enough for peace to finally breathe inside him again. The night grows quieter with every passing minute, while the little church rests peacefully beneath the clearing sky outside. The storm is almost gone now, leaving behind only cool fresh air drifting through the pine trees surrounding the town. Moonlight shines softly through the stained glass windows while the last gentle drops of rain slide slowly from rooftops onto the empty streets below. Inside the church, the traveler remains seated beside the fire, feeling calmer than he has felt in months. His thoughts no longer feel sharp and restless. The pressure inside his chest has softened. Even his breathing feels slower now, steadier somehow. The old man quietly closes the Bible resting across his lap before looking toward the traveler once again. Do you know why exhausted people struggle to sleep peacefully? He asks softly. The traveler slowly lifts his eyes toward him. Because tired hearts often believe they still have to keep fighting, even in the middle of the night. Those words settled deeply into the traveler's soul because that had become his reality lately. Every night his body begged for rest, while his mind refused to stop carrying tomorrow. Fear about the future, regret from the past, endless pressure sitting inside his chest like a weight he could never fully put down. The old man leans back slightly while candlelight flickers across his peaceful face. But peace begins the moment a tired heart realizes it does not have to carry everything alone anymore, he says quietly. Outside, clouds continue drifting away while stars shine clearly above the town once again. The church feels warm, safe, almost untouched by the stress waiting somewhere beyond these walls. The traveler stares quietly into the glowing embers while emotions slowly rise inside him again. Relief, calmness, hope, feelings he had not experienced deeply in a very long time. The old man gently smiles before continuing. Jesus already stands inside tomorrow, he says softly. You do not need to fear every step ahead before you even reach it. The traveler feels another wave of peace move quietly through his chest while hearing those words. Because lately fear about the future had been stealing nearly all of his peace. He spent so much time preparing for bad things that he forgot how to experience comfort when life offered it to him. Outside, the wind grows softer while the stars shine beautifully above the peaceful town. The fire crackles gently nearby while warmth fills every corner of the church. The traveler slowly closes his eyes while listening to the quiet sounds around him. Firelight, wind, silence, calm. Everything feels slower now, lighter somehow. And sitting beside the fading fire beneath the peaceful midnight sky, he finally allows himself to believe something his exhausted heart desperately needed to hear tonight. Maybe he truly does not have to survive life alone anymore. The church remains wrapped in peaceful silence while the night slowly drifts closer toward morning. Outside, the storm has almost completely disappeared now, leaving behind only the soft sound of wind moving through the pine trees surrounding the quiet town. Moonlight shines gently across the wet streets while cool mist settles over the rooftops beneath the dark sky. Inside the church, the traveler sits quietly beside the glowing fire, feeling warmth spread through his body little by little. His mind no longer feels trapped inside endless thoughts the way it did earlier tonight. The fear inside him has softened. The pressure in his chest no longer feels unbearable. Even the silence feels comforting now instead of lonely. The old man watches the fading flames carefully before speaking again in a calm, gentle voice. Sometimes people become so used to emotional exhaustion, he says softly, that they forget peace was always meant to be part of their life too. The traveler listens quietly while staring into the fire. Those words settle deeply into him because lately stress had become normal. Overthinking became normal. Feeling emotionally drained every day became normal. Somewhere along the way, he stopped believing rest was even possible anymore. Life simply became something to survive. Wake up tired. Push through the day tired. Lie awake at night, carrying thoughts too heavy for sleep. Repeat everything again tomorrow. The old man slowly folds his hands together while candlelight flickers across the room around them. A tired heart eventually stops asking for help, he says quietly, not because it no longer hurts, but because it becomes used to carrying pain alone. The traveler lowers his eyes because deep down he understands exactly what that feels like. For so long he kept everything hidden inside himself. Fear, loneliness, anxiety, emotional pressure. He smiled around people while silently feeling himself becoming more exhausted every week. Nobody fully understood how heavy life had become beneath the surface. But tonight, inside this peaceful church while the world rests quietly outside, he no longer feels invisible inside his pain. The old man notices the emotion moving softly across the traveler's face and gently smiles. Jesus sees the exhaustion people hide from everyone else. He says softly, even the exhaustion hidden behind smiles. Outside, clouds drift slowly beyond the moon while cool wind brushes softly against the church windows. The fire crackles peacefully nearby while warmth fills the quiet room. The traveler closes his eyes briefly, letting the calmness surrounding him settle deeper into his heart. And somewhere inside himself, he begins realizing something important tonight. Maybe healing does not always begin with answers. Maybe sometimes healing begins the moment an exhausted heart finally feels safe enough to rest. The fire burns lower now, glowing softly beside the traveler while the peaceful church remains wrapped in stillness. Outside, the town sleeps quietly beneath the fading storm clouds while silver moonlight reflects gently across the rain-covered streets. The sound of dripping water falls softly from rooftops while cool wind moves through the pine trees surrounding the church. Everything feels calm tonight. The kind of calm tired souls spend years searching for without even realizing it. The traveler leans deeper into the chair beside the fire while the warmth around him slowly pulls more tension from his exhausted body. For the first time in many nights, his thoughts no longer feel sharp and overwhelming. They feel slower now, quieter somehow, like waves finally calming after a long storm. The old man gently turns another page in the Bible before speaking again. Most people carry fears they never fully talk about, he says softly. The traveler listens carefully while staring into the glowing embers nearby. Some fears live so quietly inside people. Nobody else even notices them. Those words settled deeply into the traveler's chest because lately fear had been following him everywhere. Fear about tomorrow, fear about failing, fear about disappointing people, fear that no matter how hard he tried, life would never truly feel peaceful again. The old man slowly looks toward the church windows where moonlight glows faintly through the glass. Fear exhausts the heart, he says quietly, because fear convinces people they must constantly prepare for pain. The traveler lowers his eyes because deep down he knows that feeling too well. Even during good moments lately, his mind struggled to relax. Part of him was always waiting for something to go wrong again. He spent so much time emotionally preparing for bad things that he forgot how to experience peace when it finally appeared. Outside, the clouds continue moving slowly across the sky while stars begin shining faintly beyond them. The old man gently smiles before continuing. But Jesus never asked you to live in constant fear, he says softly. He asked you to trust that he is already holding tomorrow. The traveler feels another wave of calm move quietly through his chest while hearing those words. Because lately tomorrow itself had become exhausting to think about. Every future thought carried pressure with it. Questions, uncertainty, anxiety. But tonight, sitting beside this warm fire while the world rests peacefully outside, something inside him finally begins loosening little by little. The old man quietly closes the Bible once again before looking toward the traveler with calm understanding in his eyes. You do not need to solve your whole life tonight, he says gently. You only need to rest. Simple words, yet they touch something deep inside the traveler's heart because rest was exactly what his soul had been begging for all along. And while the fire crackles softly beside them beneath the fading storm, outside, the traveler slowly begins allowing himself to believe that peace might truly still belong to him after all. The peaceful hours after midnight continue drifting slowly forward while the little church remains warm beneath the soft glow of candlelight and fading fire. Outside, the storm has completely passed now. The clouds are breaking apart above the town, revealing countless stars scattered across the dark sky beyond the pine trees. Cool, fresh air moves quietly through the empty streets while rainwater glistens softly beneath the moonlight. Inside the church, the traveler sits wrapped in calmness while his exhausted heart slowly continues healing in the silence around him. The old man remains beside the fire, peaceful and patient, almost as though he understands that some hearts simply need quiet more than conversation. After a few moments, he finally speaks again in a low, thoughtful voice. Do you know what makes emotional exhaustion so difficult? He asks gently. The traveler slowly looks toward him. It convinces people they must keep carrying everything alone. The traveler stares quietly into the fire because deep down he knows how true those words are. For months he carried pressure without slowing down. Responsibilities, expectations, fear, overthinking. He kept telling himself he just needed to stay strong a little longer. But little by little, the weight became too much for his heart to handle alone. The old man folds his hands quietly together while firelight flickers across his face. Some people become so focused on surviving, he says softly, that they forget they deserve peace too. Outside, the wind brushes gently through the pine branches surrounding the church, while moonlight glows across the windows nearby. The traveler closes his eyes briefly, letting those words settle deeply into him, because somewhere along the way, he truly had forgotten what peace even felt like anymore. Stress became normal. Anxiety became normal. Feeling emotionally drained became normal. He spent so much time trying to protect everyone else from disappointment that he forgot how exhausted his own soul had become. The old man notices the sadness behind the traveler's silence and gently smiles. Jesus understands tired hearts better than anyone, he says quietly, because he sees every invisible burden people carry. Those words bring a strange comfort to the traveler's chest. Invisible burdens. That was exactly what life had become lately, carrying emotional pain nobody else fully noticed, smiling while feeling empty, pretending to be okay while quietly struggling inside. But tonight, something feels different. Sitting here beside the fading fire while stars shine peacefully above the town outside, he no longer feels completely alone with his pain anymore. The old man slowly reaches for another piece of wood and places it carefully into the glowing embers. Warmth rises gently through the church once again while silence settles softly around them. God never abandoned you during your hardest nights, he says quietly, even when peace felt far away. The traveler feels emotion move quietly through his chest because deep down he really had wondered if God still saw him through all the exhaustion lately. But tonight, inside this peaceful church beneath the stars and silence, he finally begins understanding something beautiful. Jesus was present through every sleepless night, even the ones where the traveler felt completely forgotten by the world around him. The church feels softer somehow now as the night continues fading slowly toward morning. Outside, the stars shine clearly above the quiet town, while cool mist drifts gently through the streets beneath the silver moonlight. The storm feels like a distant memory already. The heavy rain is gone. The harsh wind is gone. Only peace remains. Inside the church, the fire glows warmly beside the traveler while candlelight dances softly across the old wooden walls. His body feels deeply relaxed now, almost weightless compared to the exhaustion he carried into this place earlier tonight. Even his thoughts have become quieter. The endless overthinking that once filled every silent moment no longer controls his mind the same way. The old man watches the glowing fire for a while before speaking again in a calm, steady voice. A tired soul often believes rest must be earned, he says softly. But peace is not something God asks you to earn. The traveler listens quietly while warmth surrounds him from every direction. Those words touch something deep inside his chest, because lately he always felt guilty for slowing down, guilty for resting, guilty whenever he could not handle everything perfectly. He pushed himself emotionally far beyond his limits because he believed strength meant never stopping, never admitting he was tired, never allowing anyone to see how overwhelmed he truly felt inside. The old man slowly shakes his head while staring into the fire. God never expected your heart to carry endless pressure without rest, he says gently. Outside, the trees move softly in the cool night wind while stars continue glowing above the town beyond the church windows. The traveler closes his eyes briefly while breathing in the peaceful stillness around him. For the first time in a long while, He no longer feels like he is fighting against his own thoughts every second. The old man continues quietly. Sometimes people confuse survival with living, he says softly. They become so emotionally exhausted that they forget life was meant to contain peace too. The traveler feels those words deeply because lately life really had become survival. Wake up already anxious. Push through responsibilities. Carry stress silently. Stay awake overthinking at night. Repeat everything again tomorrow. Somewhere along the way, he forgot how to simply breathe without fear sitting in the background of every moment. The old man gently smiles while moonlight shines softly through the stained glass windows nearby. Jesus is not disappointed in your exhaustion, he says quietly. He understands it. Those words settle deeply into the traveler's soul because lately he often blamed himself for feeling overwhelmed. But maybe he was never weak. Maybe he was simply tired after carrying too much emotional weight for too long. Outside, the peaceful town remains quiet beneath the stars while the church glows warmly against the darkness. And sitting beside the fading fire surrounded by calmness and silence, the traveler slowly begins allowing his exhausted heart to believe something it has not believed in a very long time. Rest is possible, healing is possible, and maybe peace is closer than he ever realized. The quiet night continues holding the little church gently, while the first faint signs of morning begin appearing somewhere far beyond the distant hills. Outside, the stars still shine above the town, though the sky has started softening into deeper shades of blue as dawn slowly approaches. Cool, fresh air drifts through the pine trees while the empty streets below remain peaceful beneath the fading moonlight. Inside the church, the traveler sits quietly beside the fire, feeling calmer with every passing minute. His chest no longer feels tight with pressure. His thoughts no longer race endlessly through fear and anxiety. Instead, there is stillness. The kind of stillness emotionally exhausted hearts rarely experience anymore. The old man slowly closes the Bible resting across his lap and looks toward the traveler once again. Do you feel it? He asks gently. The traveler lifts his eyes toward him quietly. The difference between surviving and finally resting. The traveler remains silent for a moment because deep down, he does feel it. Earlier tonight, his mind felt crowded with stress and emotional exhaustion. Every thought felt heavy. Every fear felt loud. But now, something inside him feels lighter somehow. Safer. Like his soul has finally stopped running after being exhausted for far too long. The old man smiles softly while the fire crackles gently beside them. Peace does not always arrive loudly, he says quietly. Sometimes it enters slowly, during moments of silence like this. Outside, a soft breeze moves through the trees while faint hints of early dawn begin touching the horizon beyond the mountains. The traveler stares quietly into the glowing embers while emotions move gently through his chest again. Relief, gratitude, calmness, feelings he thought life had taken away from him completely. The old man continues softly. Jesus never stopped seeing you during your difficult nights, he says, even when heaven felt silent. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because those words touch something deep inside him. Lately, he really had felt emotionally distant from everything, even from God sometimes. But tonight changed something quietly within him. Sitting beside this peaceful fire beneath the fading stars, he finally realizes that Jesus remained close through every hidden burden, every sleepless night, every moment of exhaustion nobody else fully understood. Outside, Birds begin singing faintly somewhere beyond the trees while dawn slowly grows brighter in the distance. The church feels warm, peaceful, almost untouched by the chaos waiting somewhere beyond these walls. The traveler takes another slow, deep breath while warmth and silence surround him completely now. And for the first time in many months, he no longer feels afraid of tomorrow in the same way anymore. Because tonight, inside this quiet little church beneath the stars and fading storm, his exhausted heart finally remembered something beautiful. He never truly had to carry life alone after all. The church grows quieter as the final hours of night slowly fade toward morning. Outside, the dark sky begins changing little by little, soft shades of deep blue appearing behind the distant mountains while the stars continue glowing softly above the peaceful town. The storm is completely gone now. Only cool, fresh air remains, drifting gently through the pine trees surrounding the church. The traveler sits silently beside the fading fire, wrapped in warmth and calmness unlike anything he has felt in a very long time. His breathing feels steady now, relaxed. Even the constant tension that once sat heavily inside his chest has almost disappeared. For the first time in months, his mind no longer feels trapped in survival mode. The old man beside him watches the glowing embers carefully before speaking again in a calm, thoughtful voice. Most people never realize how exhausted they truly are, he says softly, until peace finally touches their heart again. The traveler listens quietly while those words settle deeply into him. Because lately exhaustion had become his normal. Constant stress, endless overthinking, waking up tired before the day even began. He became so used to carrying emotional weight that he forgot life was not supposed to feel heavy every moment. The old man gently leans back in his chair while candlelight flickers softly across the walls around them. A tired soul eventually stops expecting peace, he says quietly. It learns how to survive, but forgets how to rest. Outside, a soft breeze moves through the trees while faint birdsong begins echoing somewhere far away in the darkness before dawn. The traveler lowers his eyes because deep down he understands exactly what the old man means. For so long he kept telling himself to push harder, stay stronger, keep going no matter how exhausted he felt. But tonight, inside this peaceful church, he finally realizes how deeply tired his spirit truly became from carrying life alone for so long. The old man gently smiles while watching the firelight dance across the room. Jesus never wanted fear to become your permanent home, he says softly. Those words move quietly through the traveler's chest because fear really had become part of his daily life lately. Fear about the future, fear about failing, fear about not being enough. Even during quiet moments, anxiety remained somewhere in the background of his thoughts. But now, sitting here beneath the fading stars while warmth surrounds him completely, peace finally feels real again. Not forced, not temporary, real. The old man quietly closes his eyes for a moment before speaking once more. God often heals tired hearts slowly, he says gently, like morning light slowly rising after a long dark night. Outside, the horizon continues growing brighter while the peaceful little town remains asleep beneath the fading moonlight. And sitting beside the glowing embers inside the warm church, the traveler slowly begins understanding something beautiful tonight. Healing does not always arrive all at once. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through peace, silence, rest, and the gentle reminder that Jesus never stopped walking beside him through the darkness at all. The fire beside the traveler burns softly now, glowing more with warm embers than bright flames, while the peaceful church rests quietly beneath the final moments of night. Outside, the horizon continues brightening slowly beyond the mountains. Those stars still shimmer above the sleeping town. Cool morning air drifts gently through the pine trees while soft mist settles across the rooftops below. Everything feels calm, fresh, almost untouched by the stress and noise waiting somewhere beyond this quiet place. The traveler remains seated near the warmth of the fire while peaceful silence fills the room around him. His thoughts feel lighter now than they did when he first arrived during the storm hours earlier. The fear that once followed him everywhere no longer feels as loud. The pressure in his chest has softened into stillness. The old man watches the faint sunrise beginning far beyond the church windows before speaking again in a gentle voice. Sometimes people spend so much time worrying about tomorrow, he says softly, that they forget today still contains peace too. The traveler slowly lifts his eyes toward the growing morning light. Those words settle deeply into his heart, because lately tomorrow had become one of his biggest fears. Every future thought carried anxiety with it, questions without answers, pressure without rest. He spent so much energy trying to prepare for pain that he forgot how to fully experience peaceful moments while they were actually happening. The old man folds his hands quietly together while the church glows softly beneath candlelight and early dawn. Fear steals people away from the present moment, he says quietly. It keeps their mind trapped somewhere ahead of them. Outside, birds begin singing softly in the trees while cool wind brushes gently through the empty streets of the town below. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because deep down he knows how true those words are. Even during calm moments lately, his mind refused to rest. It kept chasing worst-case scenarios, future problems, endless worries about things that had not even happened yet. The old man gently smiles before continuing. But Jesus already stands inside tomorrow, he says softly. You do not need to carry the future before it arrives. The traveler feels another wave of calm move slowly through his chest while hearing those words. Because tonight he is finally beginning to understand something his exhausted heart desperately needed to hear. Peace is not found by controlling every outcome. Peace is found by trusting that God remains present even in uncertain seasons. Outside, the first soft golden hints of sunrise begin touching the horizon while stars slowly fade one by one above the town. The fire crackles quietly nearby while warmth fills the church. Around them, the traveler breathes deeply again, allowing the calmness of this peaceful night to settle deeper into his soul. And somewhere inside himself, hope quietly begins growing again after feeling buried beneath exhaustion for far too long. Morning slowly approaches now while pale golden light begins spreading softly across the sky beyond the mountains. The stars are fading one by one above the peaceful little town, while cool mist continues drifting quietly through the streets below. Outside the church, pine trees sway gently in the early morning breeze, while birds sing softly somewhere beyond the hills. Inside, the warm, peaceful glow of candlelight still fills the room, while the traveler remains seated beside the fire, calmer than he has felt in months. The endless racing thoughts that once exhausted him every night now feel distant somehow. Quieter, less powerful. The old man beside him remains silent for a while, almost as though allowing the peaceful stillness itself to continue healing the traveler's heart. Finally, he speaks again in a low, comforting voice. Do you know why exhausted people often feel emotionally alone? He asks softly. The traveler slowly looks toward him, because pain becomes very quiet after a while. Those words settle deeply into the traveler's chest, because lately loneliness had become one of the hardest parts of life. Not physical loneliness, emotional loneliness. The feeling of carrying pressure nobody fully understands. Smiling around people while quietly feeling overwhelmed inside. The old man watches the soft morning light appearing through the stained glass windows nearby. Some people become so used to hiding their struggles, he says quietly, that eventually nobody realizes how tired they really are anymore. Outside, the horizon grows brighter while soft wind moves gently through the trees around the church. The traveler lowers his eyes because he understands exactly what the old man means. For months, he carried emotional exhaustion silently. He kept showing up for everyone, kept pretending he was okay, kept pushing through stress even while his heart quietly begged for rest. The old man gently smiles while warmth from the fire fills the room around them. But Jesus always notices exhausted hearts, he says softly, even when the rest of the world does not. The traveler feels emotion rise quietly inside his chest because deep down, that is exactly what he needed to hear tonight. Needed to know his pain was seen. Needed to know he was not invisible inside all the pressure and exhaustion he had been carrying alone. Outside, sunlight slowly begins touching the rooftops of the peaceful town while birds continue singing softly beneath the brightening sky. The church feels warmer now, safer somehow, almost like time itself slowed down inside these walls. The old man gently leans closer toward the fading fire while the glow reflects softly across his calm face. You do not need to prove your worth by destroying your peace, he says quietly. The traveler closes his eyes briefly while hearing those words because lately he really had been sacrificing his peace, trying to keep everything together. But tonight, something inside him finally changed. Sitting here through the quiet hours of darkness beside this warm fire, he is beginning to understand that Jesus never expected him to carry life through fear and exhaustion alone. And somewhere deep inside his tired soul, healing continues unfolding gently with every peaceful breath he takes. The little church rests peacefully beneath the soft light of early dawn while the final traces of night slowly disappear from the sky outside. Warm golden sunlight begins touching the stained glass windows, covering the wooden floor in gentle colors, while cool morning air drifts through the trees surrounding the town. The storm from earlier feels far away now, almost unreal compared to the calmness filling the world this morning. Inside the church, the traveler sits quietly beside the fading fire while peace settles deeper into his heart with every passing moment. His shoulders no longer feel heavy with tension. His breathing feels calm and steady now. Even the emotional exhaustion that once consumed his thoughts seems softer somehow, like darkness slowly disappearing beneath the rising sunlight outside. The old man quietly watches the growing morning light before speaking again in a gentle, thoughtful voice. Many people spend their whole lives searching for peace, he says softly, but they search in places that can never truly give it to them. The traveler listens carefully while staring into the glowing embers beside him. Those words feel deeply personal because lately he searched everywhere for relief from the pressure inside his heart. Work, distractions, staying busy, endless thinking. But none of it ever truly quieted the exhaustion he carried inside himself. The old man folds his hands together while sunlight slowly fills the church around them. Real peace does not come from having a perfect life, he says quietly. It comes from knowing you are not walking through life alone. Outside, birds glide through the brightening sky while soft wind brushes through the pine branches surrounding the church. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because deep down, tonight finally helped him understand that truth. His problems did not magically disappear. Life outside these walls would still contain difficult moments. But something important changed inside him during this peaceful night beside the fire. Hope returned. Calmness returned. The old man gently smiles while watching the traveler's peaceful expression. Jesus was never asking you to carry every burden by yourself, he says softly. He was asking you to trust him with the weight you were never meant to hold alone. Those words settle deeply into the traveler's soul while warmth spreads quietly through his chest again. Because for so long he believed strength meant handling everything himself, never slowing down, never admitting how emotionally tired he truly became. But tonight, inside this quiet church, while morning rises peacefully beyond the windows, he finally realizes that surrender is not weakness. Rest is not weakness. Trusting God with his exhaustion is not weakness. Outside, sunlight now shines across the rooftops of the little town while the church glows warmly beneath the soft colors of dawn. The traveler breathes slowly, deeply, peacefully, and somewhere inside himself, he quietly begins believing that maybe brighter days truly are still waiting ahead after all. Morning has fully arrived now, painting the peaceful town in soft golden sunlight after the long storm-filled night. Outside the church, the streets glisten gently beneath the fresh morning air while birds sing from the pine trees surrounding the hills beyond. Cool mist drifts slowly away between the rooftops as sunlight continues warming the world little by little. Everything feels calm now, clean somehow, like the storm carried away more than just rain during the night. Inside the church, the traveler remains seated beside the fire while the last glowing embers crackle softly nearby. He feels different now compared to the exhausted man who walked through these doors hours earlier beneath the heavy rain. The fear that once filled his chest no longer controls him. The emotional pressure feels lighter. Even his thoughts move more peacefully now. The old man watches him quietly before speaking one more time in a calm, comforting voice. You know, he says softly, healing often begins the moment people finally allow themselves to stop carrying everything alone. The traveler lowers his eyes while those words settle deeply into him. Because tonight, that is exactly what happened. Somewhere during the silence, the warmth, the calm conversations beside the fire, his exhausted heart finally stopped fighting so hard to survive on its own. The old man gently smiles while sunlight shines softly through the windows around them. God never asked you to be fearless, he says quietly. He simply asked you to trust that he remains with you through the fear. Outside, the peaceful sounds of morning continue filling the town while cool wind moves gently through the trees. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because deep down he realizes something beautiful now. Jesus never abandoned him during his hardest nights. Not once. Even during sleepless evenings filled with anxiety. Even during the moments where life felt unbearably heavy. God remained near through every hidden burden he carried silently inside himself. The old man slowly stands and walks toward the church doors while warm sunlight pours softly through the entrance. The world outside will still move quickly, he says gently. There will still be responsibilities, difficult days, moments where fear tries returning again. The traveler quietly listens while peace settles deeper into his chest. But now, the old man continues softly. You know where peace can always be found. Outside, sunlight glows beautifully across the town beneath the bright blue morning sky. The church feels peaceful in a way words can barely describe. Safe, healing, holy somehow. The traveler slowly stands from the chair beside the fading fire while calmness surrounds him completely now. And as he looks toward the open church doors glowing beneath the morning light, he finally understands something his exhausted heart needed to remember all along. No matter how difficult life becomes later on, he never truly has to face it alone anymore. The traveler slowly walks toward the open church doors while warm morning sunlight pours gently across the wooden floor beneath his feet. Outside, the peaceful little town glows beneath the fresh sky after the long, storm-filled night. Rainwater still sparkles softly along the empty streets while cool wind moves quietly through the pine trees surrounding the hills beyond. Everything feels calm now. Still, like the world itself slowed down long enough for exhausted hearts to finally breathe again. The traveler pauses near the doorway for a moment, turning back toward the quiet church behind him. Candlelight still flickers softly near the walls while the last glowing embers of the fire continue crackling gently beside the empty chair where he spent the night. And standing there beneath the warm morning light, he realizes something inside himself has changed. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. Earlier tonight, his chest felt heavy with pressure. His thoughts felt crowded with fear, anxiety, exhaustion, and loneliness. Every day lately felt like survival instead of living. But now, after hours spent in peace beside the fire, after hearing quiet reminders that Jesus never abandoned him during his hardest nights, his heart no longer feels trapped inside the darkness the same way. The old man slowly walks beside him and looks out toward the bright morning sky above the town. Storms do not last forever, he says softly. The traveler remains silent while listening to the peaceful wind moving through the trees outside. But exhausted people often forget that while they are still standing inside the storm. Those words settle deeply into his chest, because lately life really had felt endless. Endless pressure, endless overthinking, endless emotional exhaustion that never seemed to fully leave him. The old man gently smiles while sunlight warms the church doorway around them. God never promised life would always feel easy, he says quietly. But he did promise you would never walk through difficult seasons alone. Outside, birds glide peacefully through the bright morning sky, while sunlight touches the rooftops of the quiet town below. The traveler breathes deeply, slowly, calmly. And for the first time in many months, his future no longer feels quite so frightening anymore. Not because every answer suddenly appeared overnight, but because peace returned to his heart again. The old man gently places a hand against the church door before speaking one final quiet truth. Sometimes healing begins the moment people finally stop trying to carry everything themselves. The traveler closes his eyes briefly because tonight, that healing quietly began inside him. And as the peaceful morning stretches endlessly beyond the church hills, he finally understands something his exhausted soul desperately needed to remember. Jesus was beside him through every sleepless night, even the ones where he felt completely alone. The morning air feels cool and fresh as the traveler slowly steps outside the church beneath the golden sunlight of dawn. The storm has completely disappeared now, leaving the peaceful town shining softly beneath the clear blue sky above. Water drips gently from rooftops while soft wind moves through the trees lining the quiet streets below. Everything around him feels lighter somehow, cleaner, peaceful in a way his heart has not experienced in a very long time. The traveler pauses at the top of the church steps while sunlight warms his face. He looks toward the distant hills glowing beneath the early morning light and quietly takes another deep breath. For months, maybe even longer, his chest constantly felt tight with pressure. Fear followed him everywhere. Anxiety filled his nights. Even simple moments of rest became difficult because his thoughts never stopped carrying tomorrow. But standing here now after this long, peaceful night, something inside him finally feels calm again. Not perfect, not completely healed all at once, but calmer, stronger somehow. The old man slowly steps outside beside him while the church bells begin ringing softly somewhere behind them. "Do you feel the difference?" he asks gently. The traveler looks toward him quietly. "Last night your heart arrived here carrying fear," the old man says softly. "This morning it carries peace." The traveler lowers his eyes for a moment because deep down he knows those words are true. Earlier tonight he truly believed exhaustion would never leave him. Life had become too heavy for too long. But now, after hours spent wrapped in silence, warmth, prayer, and gentle reminders of God's presence, his soul finally feels like it can breathe again. Outside, birds sing softly through the brightening sky while fresh morning air moves peacefully through the town around them. The old man smiles kindly before continuing. "Jesus often heals people quietly," he says softly. "Not through noise, but through peace." The traveler feels emotion rise gently inside his chest, because tonight healing truly did arrive quietly. Through candlelight, through calm conversations beside the fire, through stillness, through finally feeling safe enough to stop carrying every burden alone for a little while. The old man slowly looks toward the horizon where sunlight stretches across the hills beyond the town. "Life will still have difficult moments after today," he says gently. "But now you know something important." The traveler waits silently while the peaceful breeze moves softly around them. "You are never facing those moments alone." Those simple words settle deeply into the traveler's soul because they carry the truth his exhausted heart needed most. And standing there beneath the beautiful morning sky after the longest night he can remember, he quietly begins believing that peace is not something lost forever. Sometimes it simply waits patiently for tired hearts to finally slow down long enough to receive it again. The peaceful little town continues waking slowly beneath the soft golden light of morning while the traveler walks quietly along the road beside the church. Behind him, the old wooden building rests peacefully among the pine trees, glowing warmly beneath the sunlight after the stormy night has finally passed. Cool, fresh air drifts gently through the streets while birds sing softly from the rooftops above. Everything feels calm now, gentle, almost sacred somehow. The traveler keeps walking slowly while his thoughts move quietly through his mind again. But this time they no longer feel sharp or overwhelming. They feel softer now, peaceful, like the storm inside his heart finally began settling sometime during the long quiet hours beside the fire. He remembers the fear he carried into the church last night, the emotional exhaustion, the loneliness, the pressure to stay strong no matter how heavy life became. For so long he believed nobody truly understood how tired he really felt inside. But tonight changed something. Not because every problem disappeared, not because life suddenly became perfect, but because Jesus reminded him that exhausted hearts are never invisible to him. Outside, sunlight glows beautifully across the hills surrounding the town, while cool wind brushes softly through the pine branches overhead. The traveler slows his steps for a moment and looks toward the bright morning sky above him. And quietly, almost without realizing it, he smiles. A real smile. Small, but peaceful. The kind of smile that finally appears after a tired soul begins feeling safe again. Behind him, the church bells ring softly through the morning air once more, while distant birds continue singing somewhere beyond the hills. The traveler closes his eyes briefly while breathing in the calmness surrounding him. And deep inside his chest, gratitude begins replacing the fear he carried for so long. Gratitude for peace. Gratitude for rest. Gratitude that even during his darkest nights, God never stopped staying close beside him. He slowly opens his eyes again while sunlight warms his face beneath the clear morning sky. And for the first time in many months, tomorrow no longer feels like something terrifying waiting ahead of him. Instead, it feels possible again. Hopeful even, because now he understands something he could not fully see before this night. Peace does not come from controlling every part of life perfectly. Peace comes from knowing Jesus remains with you through every uncertain season, every sleepless night, every hidden fear, and every burden your exhausted heart struggles to carry alone. The traveler continues walking slowly down the peaceful road while the church disappears quietly behind the trees in the distance. But the peace he found there beside the fire during the storm remains with him now, resting gently inside his heart as the beautiful morning light stretches endlessly across the world ahead. And maybe tonight, this story was never only about the traveler. Maybe deep down, it was about you too. Maybe lately your own heart has been carrying more than anyone else fully understands. Maybe you smile around people while quietly feeling exhausted inside. Maybe your nights have been filled with overthinking, pressure, fear about tomorrow, or loneliness you struggle to explain. And maybe, just maybe, you needed this peaceful moment tonight more than you realized. Because sometimes life becomes so loud that tired hearts forget what calmness even feels like anymore. We keep pushing ourselves every day, keep carrying responsibilities, keep pretending we are okay while emotionally feeling drained beneath the surface. But tonight, before sleep slowly takes you, I want you to remember something important. Jesus sees every burden you have been carrying quietly inside your heart. Every anxious thought, every hidden fear, every sleepless night where your mind refused to rest. None of it was invisible to him. Even during moments where you felt emotionally alone, God remained closer than you realized. So tonight, allow yourself to breathe a little slower now. Let your shoulders relax. Let tomorrow wait until morning comes. You do not need to solve your entire life tonight. You do not need every answer before you rest. Right now, peace is enough. Rest is enough. God's presence beside you in the quiet darkness is enough. Outside your window tonight, the world may still feel busy, stressful, uncertain sometimes. But here, in this peaceful moment, you are safe. You are seen, and you are not carrying life alone anymore. So close your eyes gently now while the night grows quieter around you. Let your thoughts slow down little by little. Let the pressure inside your chest soften. And allow your exhausted heart to rest, knowing that Jesus is still walking beside you through every season ahead, even the difficult ones. If this peaceful story brought comfort to your heart tonight, make sure you stay connected to this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel so whenever life feels heavy again, you will always have a quiet place to return to for peace, rest, and calm bedtime stories that help your mind finally slow down after exhausting days. And before you fall asleep tonight, leave a comment below saying, Jesus is giving me peace tonight. Sometimes, even simple words can remind tired hearts that hope is still alive. Your comment may quietly comfort someone else scrolling through the darkness tonight, feeling overwhelmed and alone. And if this story helped your spirit breathe a little easier, you can also share it with someone who may need peace right now, too. Someone carrying silent burdens. Someone struggling with fear, stress, anxiety, or emotional exhaustion. Because sometimes one peaceful story can reach a heart exactly when it needs it most. Now, let the outside world grow quiet. Let your breathing become slower and softer. And as sleep gently finds you tonight, may God calm every anxious thought inside your mind. May He bring peace to every heavy place inside your heart, and may you rest deeply knowing you are fully seen, fully loved, and never alone through the night ahead. Sleep peacefully now, and may Jesus watch over you until morning light returns once again.